No one is opening your emails. We have been in our inboxes all week looking at emails that come from other real estate agents in our market, and they're atrocious. We're starting a whole new series called Fix It Friday. And boy, we got a lot to fix when it comes to email subject lines. If your typical open rate is less than about 20%, you have a problem. Nobody is reading your emails. And that's very typical for real estate agents because we're not taking the time to write these emails ourselves. We're using the canned campaigns that come with the CRM. These have like two different things: the emails that you are sending to other realtors and the emails that you are sending to consumers. So let's start with the emails that you're sending to other realtors. Maybe I'm alone in this feeling. And if I'm alone, please tell me in the comments, why do you spam every agent in your market to tell them about your new listing? Guess what? I have the MLS too. And if your property matches the criteria that my client needs, I can go into the MLS and find the property. I get no fewer than 20 emails a day from agents in my market saying just listed, price reduced, open house. I feel like it's a complete and utter waste of time, the vast majority of time that they send it, because they're not telling me anything that I don't already know from the MLS. What do you think about those emails?
Yeah, and then the ones that are starting to include like a bonus for the agents, it's almost like
Like a
they're
commission bonus, you mean, since we can't
yeah.
talk about it now? Okay.
And it's like they're desperate. So then it's even more off-putting. It's like, is there something wrong with the property? And you feel almost like I don't even want to open this because it's like I don't think my client's gonna like this.
So for example, here's one I got this morning. The subject line has a little star emoji, and then it says new price and another star emoji, and then it says the name of the road, of the street. Does that make me want to click it? It doesn't tell me. It's just blah, 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 blank road. It doesn't tell me the town. It doesn't tell me what the new price is. It doesn't create enough curiosity for me to want to even open it. It makes me annoyed and I delete it without opening it. And I'm sure you guys feel the same way because you're all getting this many emails every single day with a stupid subject line that just, in fact, I even created a rule in my email. Anything that had new listing, price reduced, open house, price drop, anything that had that in the subject line goes directly to the trash folder so that it doesn't clutter up my inbox. Because again, if I have a client that is looking for a house in this town in this price range with these features, I can go into the MLS and see that property. Unless this is an off MLS property or it's new construction that is with the builder, but they didn't put it in the MLS, I don't see a reason to spam all of your fellow agents with that kind of stuff. I think it's annoying. I think that we just don't even look at them anymore. You see it all in your inbox and you just do a bulk select and then hit the delete button. I don't think anybody is opening those.
Yeah, I don't either. Not only are you wasting your time by creating these, but you're losing opportunity to promote the house. And as a consumer who wants to sell a house, I would be frustrated if I knew this was how my agent was promoting my house, because then you're ending up not bringing people to it. I mean, that's
It's
that's
really
the
just a
endpoint.
waste of time. And I think there are even services that will send the email for you. And those are even worse because they are so canned and so generic. And this one that I clicked on today, it's got lots of formatting. It has like the newsletter format where it's got their big logo at the very top and it's lots of colors and lots of photos. And I go to a ton of conferences and I spoke to a guy who is like an expert, an actual expert in email deliverability. And he said those go to the spam folder more often than not because it's got so much stuff in it where it's just a plain text email with one photo would be much more likely to go to somebody's inbox than to go to their promotions tab. But yeah, I agree with you. And the part of the reason why we don't want to open them is because there's no value in the subject line and there's nothing that makes me curious enough to want to open it and know more. So I would say, agents, if you're sending these to every person in your MLS just to promote your listings, A, tone it down a notch because nobody
Yeah.
wants to get more email. Nobody wants to get more spam. And B, try to come up with a subject line that makes me curious. So rather than just saying new price, 123 Main Street, what if you said amazing lakefront property in Springfield, less than $400,000? At least that gets my attention and would make me want to open the email versus new price, 123 Main Street.
If you're sending the auto drip emails to people in your MLS, you're already working with them, but you still have to send good subject lines that make them want to open the emails. So you don't have to be lazy about it and send just the auto subject line that the MLS provides. You still want to frame it properly that makes them open the email and be ready to continue to work with you. And so following up the steps, making the subject lines creative and enticing is extremely important. I got an email from Karin this morning that said new activity in your neighborhood. Spoiler alert, I am selling my Savannah house, but soon. But
Who's your agent? I know someone.
exactly. But I immediately opened it because I wanted to know, as the consumer, are the prices going up or are they lower? Because since I'm getting ready to list my house and I'm going to be meeting with Karin in a couple of weeks, I obviously need to start framing the questions that I'm going to have for where should I be listing my house in the price range point. So I'm going to open that email and I'm going to look at what she has to say.
The whole point of sending an email is the person has to open it. And I think that people approach emails the same way that they approach YouTube videos. We put all the time and effort into the content itself, and we give very little time and effort and thought to the headline, the title, the subject line. So I want to start talking about subject lines that actually get opened, especially the ones that you're sending to the consumers. If somebody goes to your website and they fill out the form that says contact me, or they download some sort of free guide, the subject line of the very first email that you send is going to kind of set the tone and train them whether or not your emails are going to go to their main folder or go to the spam folder, the promotions tab, and if they're going to get opened. And if we send it to them, it goes to their inbox and they click on it and they open, it trains your email system. This is not junk. Send it to my inbox. If they reply to the email, you'll never go to the spam folder again because they replied to the email. So clearly it was something that they wanted. So your goal is to write a subject line that gets opened.
I think the amount of time and how you contact them is so important too. And so that first, it's just like your video, your thumbnail, your title, your hook, all of that has to be intertwined and it has to tell the truth so that the viewer stays. And your emails after your lead magnet are the same exact thing. And so if I hit download on or contact me and I give you the correct email and the correct phone number, what you send me after, if it's childish and filled with emojis, I'm never going to look at anything you send me again.
Or if
So
it looks like ChatGPT wrote it, because
yeah,
spoiler alert, we can all tell now when ChatGPT has written something because it loves emojis and it loves those big M dashes. It's not just like when I write it, I write my sentence space hyphen space and then I write the rest of it. But when ChatGPT writes it, it writes this extra wide hyphen that goes from the end of the letter to the beginning of the next letter. It's a dead giveaway that ChatGPT or any AI wrote this email. And people like, I don't want to get your novel. I don't want to get a children's storybook that's filled with all these pictures and stuff. Like, just make it valuable for the person that you're sending it to. If you wouldn't want to read it, trust me, they don't either.
yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about some best practices then for subject lines, because this is something that I've been really studying hard. I went to a virtual summit. It's probably been about a year now. And it was all about subject lines that get opened and how can you write emails with subject lines that people will click on so that you don't go to the promotions tab and you don't go to the spam folder. And they had so many great ideas. But number one was put yourself in their shoes. What do they want? What are they afraid of happening? What is their biggest fear? What is their biggest goal? And then write the subject line to speak directly to that benefit or that pain point. So in that example, let's say somebody went to my website and they downloaded the military first-time buyers guide. And we send them the first-time buyers guide. And it could say something very factual in the subject line to deliver that thing that they've just requested. Here is your military first-time buyers guide. Because that's what they just clicked on. And now when they see it in their inbox, they're like, yes, that's what I just requested. Click, we're going to open it. But then maybe the next email that goes out the next day or the day after, maybe it says something like, this is what trips up almost every VA buyer that I've ever worked with. And now they're thinking, oh, there's a big mistake. I need to know what that is. They're going to be more likely to open it than just some random canned email that comes from your CRM.
As a military buyer, when I looked at Karen's relocation guide, all the follow-up emails spoke to problems and questions that I had. And so before you build your drip campaigns or think that you're going to do the canned responses, I think it's so important to know who your ICA is, because they have questions. And if you can dial in, like Karin said, to who that person is, you will start building out what their questions are. Karin knew when she was building out her military buyer and who she was speaking to, all these questions. And, how to use a VA loan, that was me. Buying in Savannah, that was me. And not wanting to live on post, that was me. All of these things were checking off. And so it all drew me in. And I didn't try to speak to any other agent because everything she talked about, it hit every box. And so I think it's really important that the subject line, you're not speaking about yourself or things that you are an expert in. You're answering questions and fears that the buyer or the seller has.
And that's a really good point, because that particular email drip campaign, I wrote specifically for people that downloaded that guide. So I knew that everybody that goes to this landing page and opts in for this guide, I'm tagging them with buyer, and I'm tagging them with relocation, and I'm tagging them with military. They are downloading this guide because they're in the military, they're relocating to Savannah, and they want to buy a house. So knowing that they are military, every email that I sent them, I could be talking about VA loans and what's the funding fee and what things are you allowed to pay for, but other things you're not allowed to pay for, and the seller has to pay for, or somebody else has to pay for it. And you can make these emails, they don't have to be 17 paragraphs long. It could literally be 2 paragraphs long and then end with a question so that the person will respond back and you can pick up the phone and talk to them. It's really important. And you might have to duplicate your automation. So you write let's say it's 10 emails, write all 10 emails, copy the entire thing, duplicate it. Only the next one is for a first-time buyer, but they're not in the military. So we take out all of the references to VA loans and whatnot. You could say something like, if you're in the military, you might be eligible for a VA loan, but we're not going to say that in every single email because we don't know that they are military. When you make those emails custom for one specific group of prospects, they're much more effective than just those canned, generic, all buyers, all sellers.
Yeah. And I feel like if you're speaking, you want to send things to other agents so that maybe say you have an open house and you want them to be able to bring their clients. You can change the subject lines to maybe something, do you have, does your buyer need to move fast? Or,
There you go.
Does your buyer have orders to move in the next 60 days, or something that is
Does your
answering?
buyer want an assumable loan, or does your
Yes,
buyer want seller financing?
like
Like,
questions
people
that
will
answers the
definitely
agent.
open those emails.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
Answering the agent's question for their client so that they're willing to open the email instead of spamming them with things that they obviously are already going to get from the MLS. You want to answer questions, fears. That is what makes a good subject line. And you don't feel like you have to overload with emojis. I think people use emojis because they want it to be seen. It's
Right.
bright colored, it's a little picture. And so they feel like maybe that's going to make it seen more. And so if you use a good subject line that is calling out immediately to a question or fear somebody has, they're more likely to open it versus feeling like, wow, that person is just trying to get my attention and instead they've aggravated me. So
Yeah. Or
yeah.
if you call out the ideal person in the subject line. So the biggest secret for first-time military buyers, where you're calling them out, you're a first-time military buyer, you are identifying them in the subject line, that really helps too. The other thing that seems to be working right now, well, let's talk about what's not working. Don't put things in title case where the first letter of every word is capitalized. People are not opening those emails anymore. It's really funny when I go into my email system and I can look at reports of what was the open rate on all of these different emails. That stopped working a long time ago. So people like either sentence case where the very first word is capitalized and then the rest of it is not capitalized, or you capitalize one word, like every letter in that specific word just for emphasis, because we can't really make it bold or italicized. We just capitalize it, or no capitalization at all. I've been getting a lot of emails where the entire thing is in lowercase, and it kind of makes my little grammar heart like, that's so wrong. Like, why can't we use punctuation these days? But that's kind of how people text now. They don't take the time to put all the punctuation and the capitalization. It just takes too long. Yeah, right. And I'm starting to do it too. And so now that's carrying over into subject lines. So that would be something we're testing. Try sending one where nothing is capitalized at all, and maybe one emoji at the very beginning just to catch their eye, but not too many so that it looks childlike, or don't use any at all. Calling out the ideal reader of this email or the ideal prospect in the subject line itself. Some other tips I've heard is don't use any word that is longer than 8 characters long. I don't know why. Why would that, like, a word such as, I don't know, now I'm not going to be able to come up with a word that's 8 characters long because I'm on the spot. But if it were just a normal word, it just happens to be longer, it doesn't get opened as much. The subject lines themselves, don't make them this long, make them this long. Try to create a little bit of curiosity so that they think, ooh, that sounds interesting. I want to know. You can put the person's name in the subject line the same way that you do a mail merge field in the body of the email. You could put it in the subject line. I could say something like, Katie, I have a question for you, ... And that's much more likely to get opened than just, I need to ask you a question. When they put their name in the subject line, that seems to work pretty well too.
Yeah, like if just thinking about that, so if it's like, you know, Katie, did you know in Georgia, or and instead of Georgia, it's like in GA, first time buyers, ... And so it's like you're building, did you know this question? And it's like, well, I am a first time buyer. What happens in Georgia as a first time buyer? What kind of, is it an incentive, or is it something that I have to pay? Like, and so I would be more likely to open that. Or, Katie, did you know sellers have to in Georgia? Or, something that's obviously better phrased because I'm on the spot now. So my grammar is not going to be right. But thinking about that, if you're putting my name in it and it's about something in the state or in the local area, depending on how long the name of the local area is, like Savannah is kind of long. So, or Effingham is kind of long. So I probably would just be like, well, I don't know what that is. So, but if you put that, it's kind of like, okay, it is specific when you use the state. And this is something that I would need to know as a seller getting, prepared to sell my property. Is this a tax I have to pay? Is this, after I sell, something I need to know? Different things like that. I would be likely to open that just so I'm prepared that this is something I need to save money for, or something, I get to not have to pay anymore. So doing that, you're right, it does kind of call something out specifically and is likely to be open, and versus just, don't forget, I'm not going to open that. I get those all the time. I don't want to open it. So I would say using names is helpful as well, depending on how long the name is.
And I like the idea of starting the sentence and then just trailing off so that they have to click on the email in order to see what the rest of the question is. I like that idea a lot too. So these are all things that you can try to make your emails subject lines better, because if no one, like, first of all, I want you to go into your CRM and try to run a report and find out, what is my typical open rate? Mine are in the last 30 days, mine are averaging at 43%. And so I go in and I look at the ones that are not getting opened, and then I figure out why. What's wrong with that subject line? Why is nobody clicking on that particular email? And if it's one out of a series of 10, then I just fix that one. I don't have to rewrite the entire email automation. I just fix the subject line on the emails that are not getting opened. And I try something completely different. So whatever I said in that subject line, try something that's like absolutely a different tactic, and then monitor it for a couple of weeks and see if it improves. Because when your email open rates improve, you get more people that reply to your emails and say, thank you for reaching out. I have a question. I want to talk to you. Let's schedule a Zoom call.
Yeah. Which is what we want, especially if people aren't opening it and you have, cold email databases. I would say test adding a lead magnet or a YouTube video so that you can try and just warm up that database and test what you're putting in those and saying something that triggers them wanting to start, working with you again, or sending that email to somebody they might know is interested in wanting to sell or buy soon in your area. But it doesn't, I feel like the subject line is so important. And if you just have a easy basic subject line that looks so canned, nobody's going to open that. And then you're wasting time thinking you need to try something else. And then that's not going to work either. So fix what's broken and then try something new, I feel like is the right way to do it.
So that was our very first Fix It Friday. Tell me in the comments, what did you think of this? And give me some ideas for future video topics. What can we fix for you? We can talk about video titles. We can talk about thumbnails. We can talk about landing pages, funnel steps, anything you want to talk about. This is kind of fun that we could fix it. And if you want to volunteer to be the guinea pig, we could review your stuff live on the air. You could be a guest on the show. So thanks for joining us for our very first Fix It Friday. And now you should watch this video next because YouTube really thinks you're going to like it.